Welcome to our second episode of 2025 UFC 311 recap of a big pay-per-view event. We've got a week off fights as well from the UFC's point of view, but obviously it's been a big weekend of combat sports too, with the PFL and Knucklemania happening, and with Conor McGregor involved in the thick of things. But man, how are you? Good to have you in person.
Yep. Great to
We're
be here in
we're we're in here
studio.
in studio.
Officially, that's a
Yeah,
tap.
that's a tap.
New
As you can see,
headquarters.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, man, pretty cool, pretty excited.
Very.
Yeah,
We've got the Sydney card coming up,
yeah,
but we had to recap the big 3-1-1 first pay-per-view of the year. Hey, it was action-packed, right?
yeah,
We'll give our grades and talk about the excitement.
yep. The
But
card itself,
how
yeah,
are you feeling after it?
man, pretty good. But before we talk about the fight card itself, the fight night itself, obviously we got to address the big incident that happened prior to the card, which was the whole change up of the very first card of the year. And we were saying in our preview, this is one of the best cards, and they're just starting it straight off the gate. And one of the reasons for that was that main event. And man, to most of our heartbreak, Arman Sarukian couldn't make it to the fight. And turns out he had some back spasms and he couldn't continue to cut weight, so he decided to withdraw from the fight. Again, there's not much details coming out of it. Obviously, he's spoken out since then,
Yeah.
and he said he's outlined the circumstances under which he had to make those decisions, and we obviously wish him a speedy recovery because, man, he is the number one guy. He is that number one contender, and it was very heartbreaking for us not to be able to witness that fight. I remember sitting down watching the weigh-in show because I happened to be up at night, doing some things, and so I was watching the weigh-in show, and they were making comments about which was clear the broadcast team didn't know as well. They're like, Arman Sarukian is one of those fighters who still hasn't weighed in, but they said, look, we've got an hour and a half still to go, so I wouldn't start worrying yet.
Yeah.
And I remember getting towards the end of it, and then the dreaded breaking news hits. And I was like, oh gosh, what is it? First, I thought it was a fight announcement, but yeah, man, to our dismay, Dana White announces on live television that Arman Sarukian's pulled out. Now that we know what we know that this was going on for about 24 to 48 hours, which is very surprising because the weigh in, this all happened on the day of the weigh in, but then the press conference happened just the day before. So they were aware. Man, I don't know, maybe we're looking too much into it, but Arman did look a little bit subdued in that press conference as well. Maybe he knew what was going on. Yeah, what were your thoughts on the actual main event falling apart, and what did you think of the replacement they did and them hustling to get that together?
Yeah, like we've been spoiled like previously about having whenever they've had a massive main event fall out, they've been able to be pretty good track record rescue a DJ, and I think this is the time where again they did well to find the replacement, but this one was a clear downgrade in my opinion. In terms of not that I didn't think Moicano deserved an opportunity. I think you could make an argument that he deserved a chance, but obviously, in terms of the chance he had to win and the people, his opinions on whether he could actually get it done was definitely up against it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that they were able to find him and give him an opportunity. But it was a complete downgrade from definitely
What we
would have
what was
seen.
promised to what was what we
Promised,
got. Yeah,
But once again, I mean, one day's notice. I mean, credit always has to go to the UFC for acting swiftly and pulling it all together. But I was still excited to see what Moicano would do.
Mm.
I knew, Islam would still win, but I was hoping, they would go a little longer, and I was sort of hopeful that he would actually test Islam a little bit. But
yeah,
in the end, it was, comfortable. How did you? How did you feel when you heard?
Man, I was devastated because I mean, this was the card. This was the event that was going to set the tone for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Clearly, two of the best guys in that division, one of the best divisions, and we harped on about this fight in our preview, and we didn't get to see it. Hopefully, it doesn't go down that track of that cursed Khabib versus Tony Ferguson sort of fight. However, Dana comes out. We'll talk about that as well. But Dana comes out and says, "Oh, Arman probably won't get the next shot,"
Yeah.
which I was a bit surprised. which obviously is a clear indication also that the UFC is not very happy with his withdrawal. Um, but as a fight, yeah, look, I think it probably made the most sense because Moicano is coming off of a 5 fight win streak. He's lightweight. He made championship weight. He was ready. I think, look, man, he took his opportunity that came his way. Obviously, it was a tall ask for any fighter to sort of change everything. And yes, he was in fight camp already. Yes, he was preparing for a fight. Albeit slightly different fighter, but still, to make all that changes mentally also and go in and do it, it's a high risk, high reward kind of situation. If you had won, if you had pulled it off somehow, you would have been the talk of the town, obviously, but then, it didn't pay off in the end. It's a high risk, low reward for Islam, and so props to him for accepting the fight, man. And in true championship style, he's indicated and shown this time and time again. We remember last time in Abu Dhabi when Charles had to pull out.
Yeah,
He's like, it doesn't matter, man. Like, I'm a champion. I'm ready to fight anyone. Just as long as they make weight, let's get this party going. And that's what it is. So we were extremely thankful for the fact that, one, for him being the champion he is, one of being the pound for pound best, but also, making sure that the fight still went on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure, like, if push came to shove, the UFC would have been fine with going with Merab versus Umar as the only main event. Sorry, the main event, the only championship fight. But Islam said, "No, I've done the hard work. Let me do it. Like, I'm ready to take it." I mean, that takes a lot of guts because you're in the best organization in the world for mixed martial arts. And to be able to say, "Yeah, I haven't prepared for this guy. I'm the champion. I got my championship belt to lose." Doesn't matter though. Just come on. Let's
yeah,
get this party going. So it's much respect to him, and this is why he's one of the most respected and loved champions around the world. Everyone has tremendous respect for Islam Makhachev, and in terms of the replacement, I was a bit surprised that Benil Dariush wasn't offered the replacement, although it does make sense because he's coming off of two losses,
mm,
and both to the guys, technically the next two guys for the title, which is Armin and Oliveira. He lost to both of them in devastating fashion, KO. So they probably couldn't justify putting him against Islam, but I also feel that style of Benil Dariush would have been really good. We would have got a more competitive fight because we've seen the styles make fights, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, man. Like eventually, they made the decision that made sense, and I do see it. I agree with them. You get the guy on the win streak from that division. You give it makes sense, but the fight went how a pound for pound number one fighter versus a number 10 ranked fighter should go. Like it was quick work. There was that slip that sort of had a bit of gave a bit of a moment of excitement for all the fans. Like, oh, what's happening? Did he catch him? But then outside of that, man, it was just pretty straightforward. He went in and did what he was supposed to do. And hey, let's not forget, we went 5 for 5 on predictions.
mm.
I think maybe the last one, the Holland one, I think you picked Holland, obviously, because you can't go against your man Holland. You're a fan. But hey, we're pretty consistent with all our picks. We've got to give a
Oh,
shout out to ourselves for these consistent, like the last few pay per views, we've been delivering some solid picks. So for those who are following, maybe put some money on it next time.
we
Um,
we played the game.
yeah.
We know form. We
We're doing it the second time.
um,
um,
what I want to do quickly add, yeah, credit to Islam for taking it. You love the champ's mindset,
yeah.
fight whoever. I don't think we've really seen a champ decline a last minute addition, but still doesn't make it any less, commendable. But I will say, part of me might think that there'll be some relief. Don't you think if you're Islam, do you think it's plausible where you wake up and you feel like, oh, I'm not fighting Armin, I'm fighting Moicano?
Yeah.
Yes, it's something you might have planned for, but don't you feel like it might have
Yeah.
been a little bit of relief, thinking, "Oh, this is a lesser opponent,"
Yeah, no doubt. He would have definitely thought, like, look, like I said, these rankings are there for a reason. It, Armin's number one ranked and
Mm,
Moicano's number 10. He was making his way up the ranks, but yes, surely, like, it's like, well, there's a skill set. There may be a gap in that skill set. But having said that, when he did say that to the UFC, saying, hey, look, bring me anyone, he didn't know who they were going to bring.
oh, true,
Do you know what I mean?
true,
Like,
yeah, true that.
like remember last time
Yeah,
they brought in Alex Volkanovski. At the
yeah.
time was pound for pound number one,
That's
right?
the point.
So, So he's just showing that he's a game champion. And actually, to be honest, man, there's most of the champions do try and not take these last minute replacements. We've seen the
Yeah,
likes of John Jones, who they're very picky with preparing for fights, and they're like, "Oh, we're champions. We don't
yeah,
need to be in that situation. If someone pulls out, that's their fault." Whereas sometimes it does take that extra sort of um, like confidence in yourself to be able to say, "Look, doesn't matter, let's do it." I think there's a few champions I agree who do it. Another champion, Merab in the Korean, he would have done it too if the situation was there.
yeah.
And there's a few champions who would do it, but yeah, man, like it's still credit where credit's due. Keen to know your thoughts on Dana's words about not wanting to see um, Armin fight for the title next. He's like saying, "Oh, he's got to work his way
Mm,
up." What did you think of that? Were you surprised?
yeah.
Do you agree with him?
Great question. I think, man, doesn't surprise me because Dana does seem to quite be a little more emotional right after a pay per view,
Mhm.
where he sees his day to day is the business side and pouring his blood, sweat, and tears in the running of the event, making sure it goes perfect. So anything that gets in the way of it running smoothly, he might feel, look, to hell with this guy. But I feel like, after a week or two, he might see things a little differently. Hopefully he does. I'm hoping that,
Yeah,
he doesn't
yeah,
look at, hold this against Armin too much,
yeah,
like without knowing as much detail as obviously he knows. Like I said, he's behind the scenes a lot more and he knows more information than
hundred
we do.
percent.
But look, I still want to see that fight. I mean, it probably makes me want to see it more, DJ.
I
After
agree.
seeing Islam clearly, handle Moicano,
Yeah,
clearly he's running out of opponents,
but
man. We need to see it.
100%. Like he's beaten Oliveira already. Um, who else is in that top
Mm,
10? You know what I mean? We've seen him fight Dustin Poirier. I know he's going to Justin Gaethje is fighting Dan Hooker. That could be a
yeah.
potential number one contender, which is fine. Neither of those guys have fought for
Charles,
a
people keep wanting to
yeah,
see
Charles the
Charles.
rematch. Yeah,
Yeah,
and we haven't seen Dan Hooker fight for a championship, but Justin Gaethje's fought Khabib for the championship, but we haven't seen him fight Islam. That's another fight that even Islam's coach was saying,
yeah,
hey, that's one of the tough fights that we identify as a tougher fight for Islam. This was a while back, but still, I still think the fight to make is Arman Sarukian.
yeah,
I understand Dana was probably pretty annoyed because they built that card around that Armenian population in Los
yeah.
Angeles,
Exactly. True.
and they wanted to, sort of get maximum value for that, and
Mm,
they sort of Dana White probably feels he missed out on that, and then maybe the last minute nature of everything probably was also something that didn't sit well with him. And we know the UFC, man, like sometimes they do get annoyed and angry, and they tend to
yeah,
show those repercussions. Hopefully that'll pass, and they'll be able to sit down and have a chat about it. Like I said, I think Islam said he wants to come back in June, July, that international fight kind of time frame. Uh,
just to quickly add that to the conversation. Ask you, like, do you think we've been spoiled in terms of there been so many champions come into these fights with injuries and we don't find out about it till later? Do you think that's sort of made Dana's expectations a little higher in terms of, remember we found out that Alex Pereira had a broken
hmm,
toe
yeah,
and you don't find out about it till later. Like he does like these fighters that show grit
yeah,
and actually, show up,
yeah.
regardless of, different injuries. A back is something that's just completely debilitating though.
Yeah,
It's a little different in my
hundred
opinion,
percent. Like I think he probably did. To be honest, it
Yeah.
was very obvious with the way he reacted. He seemed extremely disappointed, and he seemed like "Oh, I wanna." He seemed to indicate that he would have preferred for Arman to have fought.
Yeah.
That understandable from the UFC's point of view because they put a lot of effort into marketing and strategizing in terms of having the right person come to the right location do fight. Uh, Having said that, also from Arman Sarukian's point of view, man, listen, you're not just fighting another fighter, and you're not only just fighting another champion, you're fighting the pound for pound best fighter in the world. And if
Yeah.
you feel like you're compromised, that's probably not how you should be going into a fight, especially someone you fought already. And so for Arman Sarukian, he probably wanted to make sure that he was in his best shape
Yeah.
possible. I don't think there was any sort of intimidation or anything that
Yeah.
played a factor. It's just really maybe an injury he would have fought through with another fighter.
yeah,
but probably not Islam. He didn't want to
true,
risk it because imagine having two losses against you
yeah,
in your record against the same person
yeah,
kind of completely hampers your chance
yeah,
of a championship fight. And
yeah,
I think everyone identifies Islam as probably someone who will be champion for a long time in that division.
yeah,
So yeah, it's unfortunate circumstances, but we do hope that UFC can, and Armin can come to terms with it and come to an agreement, and that we do get to see that fight because I do believe that's the
yeah,
best fight to make. Well, I love Oliveira, man. I'd like to see that fight afterwards, but right now, I think the fight to make should be the Armin Zarukian fight. But kudos to Armin, man. Like the guy's like, yeah, fine. If you want me to fight someone, I'll fight someone, and
mm,
let's do it. So he's game, and that kind of shows where his mind is at. And also, credit to Islam's team as well. They came and acknowledged, listen, these things happen. We wish him a quick recovery, and we're hoping to see him soon. And then there was no sort of shade thrown in terms of
yeah,
pulling out. They handled it very classily, and that team's accustomed to that. And so, yeah, like it was all in all. Listen, was it the main event we wanted? No. Did it go the way we predicted? Yes, we predicted a Islam win, but had we known this was the fight, then obviously it would have been a more confident prediction from us. So this is no knock on Moicano, obviously.
yeah,
He's definitely a serious fighter in that division. But again, you're just talking about coming into not just the top five, but the champion
mm,
on a day's notice is no easy task. So that being said, we go into the co-main event. Now,
mm,
this fight remained as is, and in my opinion, man, delivered on all expectations and answered all the questions we had. So before we get into it too much, what did you think? What were your initial thoughts of
oh
that fight?
man, competitive
Yeah.
banger. I think two guys that are like clearly levels above the rest, and
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan and the broadcast team did a great job of sort of painting their impressions of what we were witnessing as it was unfolding. And
Yeah.
just two absolute pit bulls,
Yeah.
go at it. Styles was excellent,
Yeah.
made a great matchup. Merab's motor and Umar's ability to do be versatile, grapple, and continue to come at him as
Mhm.
well. Man, fight of the night for
Yeah.
me, and obviously it got the bonus, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was one of those fights where DJ, I didn't really feel like there was a real loser.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Umar lost, but do you feel like his stock dropped at all?
No, I don't think the stock dropped, but there was some stuff that was said before the fight that could come back to bite him
Mm,
in terms of like he had extreme confidence in himself. And one of the things that was going into the fight was like maybe the level of experience will play a difference, and that's
yeah,
exactly what we spoke about when we were predicting this fight. So like the championship experience plus Merab's resume and who he's fought could be the differentiating
yeah,
factor, and it, in my opinion, turned out to be because Yuzuma has fought Sandagan, but that's the only sort of top tier fighter he's fought. Not his fault. No one would line up to fight him. So um, I guess like maybe he went in expecting a more different version of himself and even Merab, but then it didn't end up that way.
yeah,
There was the report about the broken hand coming in.
yeah,
I hope they didn't say it immediately after the fight. I understand, like obviously that did compromise. It would,
yeah,
you're in a sport where you use your fists to, do your work. So if you have a broken hand, it's definitely going to impact you. But also, I felt in terms as the fight progressed from just not knowing that he had a broken hand. For me, it was more the fatigue, really. The
yeah,
fatigue was a key indicator in terms of he was slowing down and Merab was relentless. Like it was like tales of two cities, man. Like one guy was just building in momentum and sort of looking fresher and fresher, whereas the other was just waning in terms of their conditioning. So we don't know what happened. Maybe there were underlying conditions there as well. Yes, but one thing from the questions that we had, or a lot of us had going into these fights, is like, first of all, is Umar that championship caliber? He answered that question. Yes, he is. If he's able to do that with a broken hand, 100%, man.
mm,
Um, is Merab one of the best champions? 100%. We know that now. Can Merab take Umar down? And that was the whole thing, right? Can someone take down a Dagestan wrestler? We saw that. Right? He's able to do that. In my opinion, I think Merab's the bantamweight goat. The resume itself says that and shows that. I think he's pretty high up on the pound for pound, in my opinion. But also, in terms of sort of what he does, man, it's just
yeah,
it's just not human. I don't think
he's
people are able to function like that at that intensity and pace.
he's in phenomenal shape. Like he's a
Hmm.
guy that's so stocky but strong. You look at Umar, like you can DJ. Like you can see their body types.
Yeah,
Like Merab is built like with the motor that he has.
yeah.
As a fighter, and he can just go 5 rounds. He could have gone 5 more rounds.
He
I
could, and
feel
he said that.
like
He said that he
yeah,
could have gone for. It's just grit, man. Like he's grit and his confidence in himself, and it comes from the right place because of the people he's fought. He's fought
yeah.
wrestlers, he's fought strikers, and he's no one's been able to get him out yet.
Sean O'Malley. I mean, that one he made him look like
He
he didn't
dominated
want
Sean
to fight.
O'Malley,
Yeah,
and I would argue the last 3 rounds, like okay, maybe the last 2 rounds, Merab was, had full control of that fight.
yeah.
I didn't think by the end of that fight, I didn't believe there was any controversy.
No,
I didn't think it was it could go either way. I knew as the final bell rang, I knew okay, Merab's won that
yeah,
easy. Like so, there was no controversy. I think Umar's going to bounce back, man. Like he's going to come
yeah,
back with a vengeance,
yeah.
and he's probably going to now fight a top guy when he's back. And I think that this experience is going to add to
Yeah,
sort of his skill set, and how he approaches fights and all that, and then he will
yeah,
from here on start to accumulate that experience, and then they will definitely going to meet again depending on
oh,
how long
100%.
Marab's going to
Yeah,
stay in that division or
yeah,
stay fighting, or in terms of whatever the decisions he makes, or if he goes up, moves up, whatever it is. Man, I think uh, if he remains champion for the next year,
yeah,
18 months, guaranteed this Umar fight's happening
yeah.
again. He's going to come back up there,
I would definitely pay and want to see this matchup again, and I think the UFC will.
100%.
It'll happen again.
Fight of the night, and rightfully so, man.
Yeah,
But here's the question: who do you put Merab against next? He's
great
beaten
question.
everyone in that division.
Exactly. I think look, the UFC knowing them, I wouldn't mind seeing O'Malley again.
Mm,
I don't think it was like it was convincing by Merab, but I think all right, Merab, O'Malley defended his belt
yeah,
numerous times,
yeah,
and usually they deserve a second chance
yeah,
just to see if they can show something different and
yeah,
adjust. But Merab would be my clear favorite still. Like I
yeah.
can't I can't see anyone in the
No,
division
no, I'm with you on that one.
taking him down.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah,
I mean, if Figueiredo had beaten Peter Yan, it would have been an easy decision.
yeah,
We haven't seen Figueiredo fight for a championship in this division. He was a champion or a former champion in the
yeah,
flyweight division. Makes a lot of sense. Another name for Merab's resume. I think he would have all panned out well, but unfortunately, not the case. Having said that, though, see, I might just differ from the general uh, opinions and go like I'd like to see the Peter Yan rematch.
mm,
Peter Yan, what he did in that fight against Figueiredo
yeah,
was
yeah,
insane. Yes, that
yeah,
first fight was a one-sided beatdown, but I feel like Peter Yan said he was compromised in that, and Peter Yan since then has come back and racked up 2 wins against Yadong and
yeah,
uh, Figueiredo. So two formidable opponents, and he was pretty solid in those two fights. So maybe we'll see that. And while that's happening, I'd like to see Sean O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Two
I
very
like that.
similar fighters, I feel. And I think one of the things that we had that played against Sean O'Malley was his
Yeah,
ability to stop those takedowns.
yeah.
Uh,
We have the Triple C fight
he's
coming
fighting
up,
Song
so
Yadong. I don't know I don't know what'll happen if
yeah,
Henry Cejudo were to win, because I do feel like this is like this. He keeps saying it even in his podcast, like, oh look, I can't go out on a loss. I want to go out on a win. So it clearly is that he is going to wrap it up. But so what happens to Song Yadong if he loses? I don't know. There was a
yeah,
lot of questions around that, but yeah, I think Corey Sandhagen is good with grappling too. So, but not obviously to the level of Merab. So, having Sean O'Malley fight him, we could see how that fight pans out.
yeah.
And then if he's able to get through him, then we do the rematch with Sean O'Malley. But
Well,
for the foreseeable future, unless Pantoja comes up, I feel Merab is clear the division, and he's probably looking at a fair few rematches.
yeah,
And I also don't think it's a good
yeah,
fight for Pantoja, especially coming up and
definitely, yeah,
fighting Merab. Yeah,
yeah. Keep defending Merab. I think,
yeah,
yeah, I want to continue to see him dominate, and like you said, a goat. Couple more
yeah.
defenses. and then we'll have to ask more
Yeah.
questions. But yeah,
Who does he
definitely,
fight? Yeah.
the guy of the hour, the biggest attraction of the night, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, no, they saved the card, man. Like pretty
Yeah,
much that co-main event, technically, I would say a main event, one of the main events.
definitely.
They saved the card. Hey, the one before that, the fight that we were all looking forward to, your boy
Yeah,
Jiri and
yeah,
Jamal Hill. We knew this was going to be fireworks. Alex Pereira was on the sidelines. It was entertaining.
yeah,
He was making comments about telling he was saying things along the lines of kids don't fight. I'll take the belt down. It was entertaining, man. Alex Pereira has become one of the most entertaining figures ever. But let's talk about this fight. Yuri ends up beating Jamal Hill by TKO in the
yeah.
third round. Uh, he I wouldn't say it was a new version of Yuri. We did still see glimpses of his old
Mm,
self, which is more like maybe an upgraded or a refined version. There was a lot more head movement. Before his mindset was, I don't care about taking damage. I'll take that
mm,
damage, then I'll come forward. Whereas now he's more vigilant about, okay, let me try it. Like I'll avoid some of these, right? But he's still taking some damage. He did cop a few flush from Hill. Kind of shows how hard Alex Pereira is, man. If he is able to just put him down straight away. But man, perfect sequence at the end of it, like a pullback counter,
yeah,
and then he just finishes it on the mat, as in ground and pound. Ref pulls him out, and man, that's it. It was a good fight, very entertaining,
yeah,
very entertaining fight. Set the tone for the next two fights to come. I enjoyed that fight thoroughly.
yeah. Definitely two warriors that went the distance close to, but I think took damage. Both fighters had their moments.
Yep,
BJ in the fight, like this is one of those ones where I was just so on the edge of my seat. When you kind of, you don't want to blink because you feel like you're just going to miss a stoppage or knockout.
yep,
Starching, knockout right hand.
yeah,
Yuri, he always says it, but he needs to take a few hits
yeah,
to really wake up.
yeah,
That kind of worries me a little bit. I don't know if he's really going to be a champ again, but he's definitely, up there in the division,
yeah,
and his box office is exciting. I'm rooting for him. Hopefully, he can get the belt back one day.
yeah, man.
But yeah, he does take damage, man.
Mm,
But he's a warrior, and he can give out a lot of damage as well, man. One of the heaviest hitters in the division.
yep,
Jamal Hill again took plenty of damage.
yeah.
Face bruised up. How did you see his performance? Was it as one sided as
No, I don't
people
think it was
feel?
one sided. He had his moments in the second
Yeah,
round. Yeah, but I think it's just, I feel like, again, something we touched on in the previews, all the things that are happening outside of the fight, everything, the social media, to
yeah,
the fans, it felt like it was getting to him, but to the point where he felt the need to respond. And so he put a lot of pressure on him going into this fight. And maybe you could even see that, sort of wanting to have that flashy knockout or have a stand-up performance. And man, he did come back strong in the second round. But just Yuri proved to be the better fighter. He
yeah,
showed his skill set, his arsenal, and was able to get the job done. Still not like Jamal Hill's still up there in that conversation in
yeah,
that top five or the top of the division. Interesting, yeah, because it all depends on we do have Ankalaev and Pereira fighting in March.
yeah.
It's a massive fight. The lightweight division is quite exciting, and I feel like that division doesn't get spoken about enough. If Pereira wins, obviously Yuri's chances sort of go lower purely because he's fought him twice. Whereas Van Goliath were to get the belt, then things are a bit different. I mean, I would like to think Pereira maybe gets a rematch, but also now all of a sudden you're looking at Jiri and a new contender. And Jiri's had some exciting performances, and we know that he's loved by the UFC. But for the time being, there's a lot that needs to play out. I just feel like Jiri should either fight Khalil Roundtree,
Mm,
another one of your favorites. That's a fight of the night straight
sign me
away.
up.
You know what we can, or
Definitely.
or hear me out, or he fights the winner of Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Alberg,
Yes.
who's about to fight
Yeah.
in a few
Yeah.
weeks, right? The winner
I
gets
like that.
Jiri and the loser gets Jamal,
Yeah.
right? Or Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree were supposed to fight anyway,
Yeah.
and that fell short. That fight fell out. So maybe redo that fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While Khalil did fight for the title, he was, don't forget, he was ranked number 8.
Yeah,
But what he's done is his stock's now through the roof.
yeah,
So whoever fight, everyone's going to watch Khalil Roundtree fight again.
yeah,
So he's in a really good position in terms of whoever fights him, and I would like to think all these guys would want to fight him. There's
yeah,
going to be a lot of eyeballs in that fight. So yeah, and then if Ankalaev loses, there's that option too. Maybe
yeah,
Jiri fights Ankalaev, depending on what happens there. So many options, man. And then there's Jan Blachowicz, another former champion.
yeah.
So
Plenty of great names, great division. But let me ask you: do you think Israel Adesanya will fight at light heavyweight? And would you want to see that?
yes, because of that matchup that's there, the trilogy
Yeah,
with Pereira, because it's 1-1
yeah.
in the UFC.
I feel
Um,
like it has to happen at light
it is.
heavyweight. And the older Izzy gets, I feel like
It's
that
going to be.
that could be his
I
division.
mean, he we did see him when he did fight that once in light heavyweight against Jan
Yeah,
Blachowicz. We did see that there was a clear weight difference.
yeah,
He is going to be that smaller light heavy. But having said that, like you said, as his career progresses, maybe it does get easier
yeah,
to make 205 rather than having to push to get 180 to 185. It depends. Let's see how his next fight goes. It's
yeah,
a big fight, right? Imavov, if he beats Imavov, he's back in that conversation, man.
yeah,
Like, Israel Adesanya is someone who had like a legendary title run. So he's going to always be in that conversation. So if he beats Imavov, and
yeah,
especially in spectacular fashion, he probably fights another top contender or rematches Strickland if he were to lose, or if he were to win, then that fight's right
yeah.
there, right?
True. I
Um,
just feel like his ceiling now. He could make a name. Get back into the
yeah,
conversation, like you said, with middleweight. But I feel like light heavyweight, he might have an advantage in terms of speed. Like just for that fight we
yeah,
just saw, Jamal Hill versus Yuri. You know, Adesanya at his peak, prime with speed. I
yeah,
think he could have taken down Yuri. Now,
yeah,
will we
yeah,
see that Adesanya again? We don't know, but
yeah.
I think there's still potential.
No, 100%. And let's not forget, like he was winning. There were exchanges where he was winning against Jan Blachowicz, who was a
Yeah,
much bigger light heavyweight. So, but all said and done, man, interesting time. There's no shortage of contenders in that division. I think there's at least another 4 or 5 fights that can happen or play out. I'm actually keen to see the rise of Carlos Alberg. Man, I'm
mm,
gonna have a close eye on that Jan Blachowicz Carlos Alberg fight, because I feel like that, sort of, if he's able to get through Jan Blachowicz, I feel like he might even fight for the title next,
yeah,
right? There's
yeah,
even a small sort of marketing strategy they could use where, okay, well, it's not Adesanya, but if Pereira keeps the belt, that is, he fights Alberg, who's a training partner
fresh,
and
yeah,
friend of
fresh blood.
Fresh Blood, and training
Yeah,
partner and friend of Israel Adesanya.
definitely.
So they try and push that narrative. So anyway, so there's that. This the light heavy division. We had the sadly Benil Dariush had to be
Yep.
taken out of the card. He did everything that he was supposed to do. It wasn't his fault, but because Moicano had to step up, he was left without a fighter. But the UFC looked after him, and we
Yeah.
got to know that he got paid the um,
Show
show
and win
and winning.
bonus. Yeah.
So then there's a
Yeah.
good night for him.
Well done.
No damage taken. Clear the money. Go
Yeah.
home. Um, so that in that case, your Alton Almeida was his Spivak, the polar bear,
Cool.
got bumped up to the main card. It turned out to be a good fight, man. Like it was a
Yeah.
very exciting fight. Almeida was pretty good on the feet too, which I don't think we've seen that version of him
Yeah.
in his previous fights, where he was more confident on his feet. But obviously, eventually, he went down to his signature move and then was getting ground
Yeah.
and pound, KO TKO at the end of it. Good fight, man. It was an exciting fight. So Almeida is sort of making up that heavyweight ranking as well. Um, we got the middleweight fight that happened. That was
Mm.
with your boy Kevin Holland and
Yeah.
RDR. What did you
Yeah.
think of that?
Look, man, I should have heeded your sort of warning advice. You were spot on,
Yeah,
DJ, with the preview that we did. If you didn't catch it, DJ spoke on the experience that Derrida was going to bring. Pedigree
yeah,
from another organization. Always a tricky customer to sort of gauge. It's the big boys, the UFC, and some guys shrinking. In the bigger moment. We've had some guys make their debut, not go according to plan. But I tell you what, man, Derrida looked like he looked more than ready,
yeah,
and he dismantled Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's one of those fighters where I love him because he's action packed. He doesn't take a step back. But man, does he make some silly mistakes in terms of just coming forward, putting himself in positions, DJ, where he can be finished quickly. I mean, how did you see this?
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, because I knew going into this fight, RDI is going to be a really good grappler, and that's sort of where Kevin Owens had
Yeah,
a lot of trouble. Um, he, yeah, it was just quick. I don't know. Like, he was saying a lot of things along the lines of, "Oh, I don't really care about the fight and all that." It could be pre-fight antics, trying to get into the head of your opponent. You don't know. We know Kevin Owens. He does like to play a little bit of that mind game. But having said that, man, the performance was, yeah, like, is not what we are used to from Kevin Holland. Even that Chimaev fight, when he was, yes, it was a short-lived fight, but man, he was giving his life to defend that takedown.
yeah,
I would like he was trying here as well, but I think RDR was that good as well. So let's give that man the credit as
really good.
well.
Yeah,
It was
impressive.
good. I am yet to see sort of how he is in terms of striking. I was
Yeah,
keen to see that at this in this fight, but we didn't get to see much of it.
yeah,
He did get some damage uh, in this fight. But man, like the higher you go in the middleweight division,
hmm,
it is going to get harder, right? What happens when you're up against someone like Israel Adesanya? What do you do? Like, you know what I mean? You can't solely rely on your grappling. So, um, listen, that, and then we had the prelims. There were some good fights in the prelims too. The notable one, there were so many, but the notable one that stood out to many was the Peyton Talbot
yeah,
uh, Raoni Barcelos fight.
yeah.
It was
Oh,
a plus 200 favorite, and he lost the fight. Decision again. Grappling seemed to be the biggest differentiator there. But young prospect, man, like, probably bounce back.
yeah.
What did you think? We get to before we get to the score for the card. Dana White comes out and says, "Yep, Islam is now pound for pound number one." What did you think of that?
Yeah,
This man is no longer on his list.
we're just talking about that earlier
Yeah,
before, man. I think, yeah, we could read into it that he's turned the page on John Jones.
yeah,
In terms of, we know how much Dana respects John Jones, and he's been his go
yeah,
pound for pound forever.
yeah,
For him to, pay props to Islam. Again, he's a little emotional after these pay per views. Islam stepped up and made this card happen still.
yeah,
Islam agreed. He's a
yeah,
company man still. So
yeah.
he's doing the UFC a lot of favors. And I think Dana White was showing him some love. But yeah, part of it seemed really truthful, honest. Now he's his new pound for pound number one. Is John Jones, hanging him up? I
Yeah.
think there's a real possibility. He doesn't really seem like he wants that fight with Aspinall. A lot of risk. He's already got the money. I think Alex Pereira would entertain him more. And quite frankly, if I had a choice, I would love to see Pereira versus
Oh,
John
really?
Jones more
Oh,
than Aspinall, in my
probably
opinion.
you probably will go into the minority
Yeah,
in
well,
terms of,
not that I don't think Aspinall has a
yeah,
chance. I think that's a banger, no doubt
yeah.
about it. But it's just John Jones versus Alex
It's just
Pereira.
purely
It's
star
like,
power, is it? Yeah,
yeah, it's just like
yeah,
just the star power of that.
yeah.
I don't know, but
Oh,
what did you think when Dana White said basically unfiltered that Islam?
yeah. Like, I mean, the way he said it is more like, yeah, I'll give you guys that. He is,
Mm,
but it was very interesting, man. Like, for so many months and even years, like, he was very adamant that doesn't matter what anyone does. John Jones is number one pound for pound as long as he's living and breathing and fighting.
yeah,
He's the best in the world. You lock him in a room and he walks out, right? And then he said, like, it's a lot of these things. So interesting to know what changed.
yeah,
Like you say, it could be that appreciation towards Islam, because it is a big deal. Islam could have easily said, "Look, listen, I understand, but no, not for me. I'm prepared for a fight. I'm not going to risk it. Let's just do it in a couple of months." And they would have had no choice but to,
yeah,
because they need a champion to fight, right?
yeah,
So he's probably very appreciative of it. Do I think he's deserving of the top spot? Absolutely. I think what he's doing as well.
yeah,
But I also think Alex Pereira deserves the top spot too, because he has been a two division champ, and also he's been very active. He's been doing similar things. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Oh, it could be like a negotiating tactic.
yeah.
Could be that, or
True.
like you said, it could be there's maybe information that we don't know, that we're not privy to. But that the whole reason that Aspinall joins fights exciting is because of that air of mystery about it.
Yeah,
Being, will it happen or not? You know what I mean? So yeah, we'll have to wait and find out. But let's get to our favorite part of the recap, which is the the grade. Let's grade those papers.
Yeah.
What did you think? What
What,
was
me
your grade?
first?
Yeah, you go
All right,
first, man.
man. Thanks. Thanks for the hospitality
No.
once again. It's been a pleasure to do this recording live in person together. We didn't see the card together, but definitely we agreed on most
Yep.
things. Um, Definitely the excitement of the co-main and the Jiri card, the Jamal Hill one. The main event, as I said before, they salvaged that as much as they could. With that in mind, I would still give this one a solid 8 out of 10.
Yep.
8 out of 10 because the
Yep.
co-main was awesome.
Yep.
Like I said, there might not even be a loser. Umar Nurmagomedov
Yep.
showed that he's got championship medal, and
Yep.
he's going to be around.
Yep.
We're going to see the best of him yet to come. And I was still really curious to see what Jamal Hill was going to give. But yeah, Yuri, great to see him get a win as well. So 8 out of 10 for me. How did you see
I'm
it?
with you. I'm with you. I think 8 out of 10. Like I was before the card actually played out the way it did. I was thinking this card's gonna land in that 9 range.
Yeah,
The only reason I said 8 is because there is a disappointment. You can't deny that.
yeah,
You're expecting this fight, especially when and that's how a card should be. The main event
yeah,
should be the pinnacle of that card, and that's what it was. And unfortunately, no one's fault. It fell out. But we still got to see Islam's dominance, the pound for pound best, doing his work. The current main man was a stellar fight, lived up to its expectations, and so many like moments in that fight that you gave us the thrills and the agony, and also Merab sort of coming through adversity. Him going into this fight with so many injuries as well. I don't think it gets spoken about enough.
yeah,
The Jiri Jamal fight, and the whole card being like a generally very stacked card. Yeah, I'd like to go with an 8 as well. Yeah,
yeah,
very good card. The arena, man,
yeah,
why don't they do more fights in that arena? I don't get it. So
yeah,
it's just it was such a nice experience. Like I mean, obviously we weren't there, but like
yeah.
watching it from home,
Well,
just seeing the
it was new. The
oh, it's a
arena's
new one.
the
Okay,
arena's
cool.
very very new.
It's in LA.
Yeah, less than half a year opened up. So I
Yeah,
think great first event there, and
yeah.
they'll be back there a
I would
lot,
like to
man.
think so. You know
Um,
what I mean? Like
yeah,
the I feel like this came out of nowhere. Where like the sphere was
yeah,
like we were promised the graphics and everything. The sphere
yeah,
was good. Let's not make any mistake about that. But this was pretty solid as well. Those screens at the top
yeah,
and all that. So yeah, man, good event, solid event, good event to start the year. We have got the Sydney one coming up. We've got the Saudi one next weekend with
yeah,
the great Israel Sanya taking on Imavov. That's a pretty stacked fight night, man. I'm keen for that as well. So yeah,
yeah. Very keen. Yeah, great to do this in person, my man. And yeah, talk soon.
talk soon. That's a tap.
Cheers. That's a tap.
That's a wrap, dude.